Lights, camera, action.
Yes, action.
Hi Arijeet, how are you today?
Hi Tayzeem, I'm good. What about you?
I am also good, thank you. So first I want to share that you are an inspiration to a lot of people and your
Thank you.
resilience is commendable. Many congratulations to you for making this possible.
Thank you. Thank you
So
so
I
much.
want to start our conversation with asking you share about your life journey, and though it's in process and not a destination, if you can start with your introduction, what you have studied and what are your further plans.
I first studied in an ICSE school called Beacon High in Khar, Bandra for 10-11 years from senior KG until 10th standard, and I did my 10th from there, my ICSE board exams. And then 11th and 12th I studied in Bombay International School in the IB board, and after that right now I've taken a gap year because I'm just figuring out what my future direction is, and I plan to go to college abroad in the US and either become involved with study computer science or study public policy, because I really want to make a difference in the lives of people with disabilities, whether it's in the technology area or whether it's in policy areas in general, like beyond making technology more accessible, making the world accessible for them. And about my hobbies and interests, I enjoy good music. I love reading books and reading news and current affairs and basically keeping up to date with every what's going on. And I also like watching like videos and movies and TV, and especially comedy. Comedy is my favorite.
Yeah,
So I laugh a lot
yeah,
in the
even
day.
I like comedy a lot. So while we start this, I want to know from you about the journey. So when did you know, came to know about that you are different from others, from people around you?
So I didn't know about my disability until I was around 7.5, 8 years old. That was when my mom told me. I was in, I think, second or third standard.
So till that, around grade second, you were thinking uh, these are like how everybody would feel the same, or whatever you are doing, everybody is doing the same.
Yeah, exactly. I would think that whatever I am doing is the normal course of action for all my friends and every kid.
Hmm.
So whether it was so that when I would come back from preschool,
Hmm.
my mom would, or even KG, my mom would take me to practice some concepts which were like visual, or maybe teach me like a poem like Jack and Jill, or
Yeah.
teach me about fruits just using like models and toys. And let's see, and she would make models like an apple would be in the shape of an apple if we didn't have
Hmm.
an apple at home. So she did it through fun. So I thought that this extra practice I was getting, everybody was doing, or that the fact that I was using a computer and a screen reader, which is basically a software that reads text on the screen, I thought everybody would be doing it. So I didn't think I was any different from anyone, and I also thought that I was actually special because of my talents. Either I like music or playing the piano or being able to type really fast and quick on the computer. So I felt that I was a bit special. But when I got to know about my disability, initially I felt a little powerless. I thought that, you know, this one defect or disability, this one thing I lack is 1,000 times greater than or everything I can do. But later I realized it's the reverse. This is only one. The things I can do are 10,000 times greater than this. This is one. My disability is only one thing. My abilities are many.
Right.
And that was what my mom had intended, because in not telling me about my disability until 7.5, 8 years old, because she wanted me to see my ability before my disability, and I don't think any of us regret that decision today.
I think that's really powerful message to see the ability and not the disability. So, what were some of your strengths that helped you in getting the rightful support?
The biggest quality or the biggest strength that helped me get this through is just my sense of determination. If I got at something, or if I started doing something, I would complete it. I would do it until the end, until it finished, no matter how much hard work or effort it required. And the second was I had a very don't care attitude. A don't care attitude, not as in I don't care about studying or anything. A don't care attitude is as in if I have to do something new, or if I have to work harder, I don't care. I'm just going to do it, because I'm thinking about the outcome of the work rather than the quantum or the amount of effort that I'm putting into. If it's going to give me something good, I'll do it, of course. My third strength was, and it is actually courage and conviction. So I'm very courageous at trying out new things and putting in the hard work, and also asking for things I need. Like, of course, I'm going to go into detail further in the next few questions, but asking for my needs and my rights, and I have the conviction, and with the conviction that eventually my work will pay off, and I'll be able to, and that if I ask for my needs and I persuade them enough, I'll be able to get the support I need.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of courage to ask for the support you need, and also to share your story with people that you're doing today. And
yeah, absolutely.
And I also see that you're very courageous in doing that. Thank you so much for doing that. So I'll ask my next question, which is, what were some spaces where you struggled because of systemic barriers?
So I think the space where I struggled the most was in 8th and 9th standard, in my first school, my ICSE school, where in 9th standard you have to choose your subjects in ICSE, right? Math or science or eco or commerce, which you'll be doing for boards. So I really wanted to take math. I really want to take math and science, and no other blind or vision impaired student had ever taken math and science in ICSE. It had been written on their website that students won't be allowed to take subjects that have vision, like basically blind students won't be allowed to take subjects that have a visual element to them. But I wanted to take it. I had the conviction that I wanted to take math and science. And yes, it wasn't just that, okay, I was interested in engineering. I wasn't sure about what I was going to do, but I wanted to keep the engineering door open if in case I wanted to go into engineering. But also because there was also a larger purpose to me taking math and science. Obviously, no other blind student had ever taken an ICSE before. So if I took right now, so many other students who want to take math and science either just for 9th, 10th, or who want to pursue a career using those subjects, they will finally be able to succeed and fulfill their dreams without having to ask. So if I ask, then a path would be cleared for them, and I would be blazing a trail for them. And so I said that I wanted to take math and science, and my school was also supportive, but they were just a bit cautious that the board might not allow. And they also said that even if the board does allow, I might get lower marks in the subjects because of the visual element. So let's say if I would get a 98 taking eco or commerce, I would be getting 88 in math and science, is what my school cautioned us. They didn't say no, but they said if you choose to take, this might happen. Yeah, exactly. But I insisted, and then the school said that okay, let's try, let's ask the board. So we wrote to um, my first special educator. We even wrote to Dr. Vibha to
Yes.
ask her to ask them to write to the board
Hmm.
to
Allow
make an
you.
argument
Yeah.
to allow me to do math and science. And my principal also agreed to write and send a letter to the board. But before she could do so, miraculously, I had just started ninth with math and science, and at the end of my first week, my principal got a letter from the board, and she called us saying that I had been approved for
Wow.
math and science.
That's really inspiring. So while you're sharing about your school experiences, can you tell me some other experiences of your school?
My school was very, very, I think, exceptionally inclusive, and they didn't deny me any opportunities based on my disability. First and foremost, they considered what talents I had, and they gave me opportunities based on the talent. So I got to take part in anything I wanted to. If I said I wanted to go, they wouldn't say you can't because you have this challenge. They would just say, okay, try it out, and we'll let you take part. So whether it was annual day, sports day, or a special day like even Independence Day or Hindi Divas, I was able to take part in all activities and that the school offered, and I was able to contribute equally to my sighted friends to the sense of school spirit in our school and just be a part of the school community.
Yeah, and while doing that, did you get the support that you needed from your teachers or your classmates or other students from the school?
Yes, of course. So I spoke about my co-curriculars and extracurriculars now, but even in terms of academics, even in terms of studies, my teachers were very supportive. They, for example, in every class I was made to sit on the first bench so that I would be able to hear the teacher clearly and understand what instructions he or she was giving. And there was also a buddy system assigned to me. So one friend would sit next to me for every week or every day and would go around with me. And so I would look forward, and I was friends with everybody, and I still have a lot of close friends because I was at that school for 10-11 years, right? So I would look forward, now this one is going to be my buddy for this week or this day, then this other friend is going to be my buddy this week, this day. So I would look forward a lot. And also the teachers really encouraged my dreams and my talents. Like for example, in third standard, my teacher actually asked me to show the class how I use my Victor Reader. That's basically an audio player for the blind, which I used to use. And she asked me that, can you show your friends how to use it? So I took it into class one day and I showed them.
And how was their reaction? Did
They were in fact very thrilled looking at it, and every time I would bring it, or there would be some other assisted device like a computer in JAWS, they would also be interested in what I was doing, what I was playing around with it. And so overall my teachers and friends were extremely sensitive and inclusive, but there were only one or two incidents I think that happened. So one, in my younger days, my friends would play this game called Catch the Bottle. So they would basically take the bottle from me, and then they would tell me, Arijeet, where's your bottle? Catch, catch, catch. So it was a very visual game. So I didn't know then, but eventually we used to have a series of my mom would have a series of sensitization workshops in school when I wasn't there, when I wasn't in school. So in those workshops she explained that these are like really visual games, so if you're so why don't you try playing some other games with him which are more like engaging and equal, in which both of you all can play. So that got sorted out, and then there was this other funny incident. So
Yeah.
in 6th or 7th standard, at the end of school, when the bell would ring, we would all stand up and say a prayer, and maybe we would say the national anthem. So after prayer or national anthem got over, somebody hit me on the head, and that friend ran away, and then everybody was leaving, and I didn't know who hit me on the head, so I just hit everyone on the head as when I was going off.
Yeah, I think that's really funny. I also noticed you mentioned about your mother coming and sensitizing the whole class about what is okay to do and what else is it that they can do. So can you share some more about the family supported you in the process of asking for support?
Family, my parents, and especially my mom has been the biggest rock of support that I have had my whole life. Literally since the time she gave birth to me, because she has been with me from the beginning, right? So from the time I was little to the time when I had to fight to take math and science, and she was there with me. And an important thing is that she respected my freedom, and she gave me a lot of autonomy to decide for myself what I wanted to do. So when I said I wanted to take math and science, she said yeah, and she told me that that principal ma'am said this, that you might get lower marks if you take it, but I am with you and I'm willing to take this fight with you. And later on, after my 10th, and I had done very well in math and science and all my subjects in 10th, she told me once that what went through my mind when you decided to take math and sciences, when I wanted to go into engineering, I didn't have to explain to anyone why it was my choice to go into engineering and not into medicine or anything like that. So why should you have to explain to anyone your choice of subject?
I think that's very important, like being questioned about it. So and it's very important to respect your decisions as well. I see that your mother respects your decision and supports you in whatever you want to do. And while you were doing, you mentioned about you being the first person with visual impairment to have maths and science in the ICSE board. So I wanted to know about what are the accommodations that you got from school or board, and if any other person would want any accommodations, how can they get it?
Both ICSE and IB gave me all the accommodations I needed. So first of all, I was given extra time to write tests and assessments and exams. So for ICSE, it would be half an hour for every hour. So let's say the exam or test was 1 hour, I would get half an hour on that 1 hour, which becomes 1.5 hours. If it was 2 hours, I would get half an hour plus half an hour, which would be 3 hours. 3 hours, I would get half an hour into 3 basically, so 4 hours, 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
That was for ICSE. And for IB, I would get 100% extra time, so double. So if the paper was 1 hour, it would become double, so 2 hours. 2 hours, it would be 4 hours. 3 hours, 6 hours. So this was about time. And coming to the visual questions, the diagram questions now. So when I took math and science in ICSE, I was exempted from a visual or diagram questions in math and science. But the downside of that was that because I was exempted, my marks would be calculated from the average of the remaining questions I attempted. So I had to work as hard to lose as few marks as possible and to gain as high marks as possible, because let's say if a friend would lose 1 mark in a question in the paper, I would be losing 1.4 to 1.7 marks because of the visual questions. So the visual questions would be still there in the paper, but I wouldn't attempt them. So the average would be the remaining questions. And also, but this was for ICSE. But for IB, I wasn't exempt from any visual questions. So the visual diagram questions had to be described for me. So I had reader or a scribe for both boards. So for ICSE, I had a reader for math science and a scribe for the other subjects, and for IB, I had a reader for all subjects. So in IB, whoever was my reader had to describe the visual questions to me, and in case the visual questions could not be like attempted in my best judgment, I would write this as visual, but that wouldn't be considered because I wasn't exempt, so I would lose the mark for the question. So in ICSE, I would get the average of the remaining questions, but in IB, I wasn't exempt. So if a question was too visual and I just couldn't attempt it, I would lose a mark for that question. Now in ICSE, I was allowed to use a computer for math and science, and there would be a reader who would read the questions on the paper to me, and I would type the answer. And for the remaining subjects, I would get a scribe. So I would dictate to the scribe my answers to the question. The scribe would read the question and they would write my answer also. And for IB, I got a reader for all subjects, including and apart from math and science also. So ICSE, there was only a reader for math and science and a scribe for the other subjects. But in IB, I got a reader for all my subjects.
And if anybody wants accommodations, if any student with disabilities wants accommodation, how can they get it? If you can explain a little bit about the process for the same.
Yeah, so if you want accommodations, and this will work anywhere, in your school, college, university, anywhere. If you want accommodations, you just need to express your needs, that this is what I need. Let's say I need extra time or I need to use a computer, and just ask the relevant people or authorities at your school or college, and don't be scared to ask, and at the same time ask respectfully, and please don't be scared to ask, because eventually, even if they are a bit hesitant at first, if you persuade them enough, they'll start understanding, and eventually they'll come around and give you the accommodations.
I also know you mentioned about you were a part of MUNs and YLACs. So do you want to tell us about what those are and how was your experience with them?
Yeah, so both these MUNs and YLACs, these were extracurricular activities that I conducted outside school. They weren't organized by my school. So MUN is basically Model United Nations. So students who take part in that basically simulate what actually happens in the United Nations, and they become delegates of different countries, and they discuss and argue on an issue, and at the end of the conference they are divided into different committees based on what issues they deal with. So at the end of the conference, every committee, after discussion, they pass a resolution, and then the work of that committee ends. It's basically succeeded and the conference ends. So at one of these conferences, MUNs, I was assigned to the committee on the Commonwealth, and my country was Bahamas. So the topic of discussion for us, we were to pass a resolution on, was about the Commonwealth Games which happened this year in Birmingham in UK, and this was 4 years ago. And so anyway, after a lot of discussion and all, we got the resolution passed, and I also received an award for high commendation, which is basically the second highest award that anyone can get at an MUN. And there were also some funny moments at the conference. So basically, the person who was acting as the delegate of Canada, she sided against the UK delegate, whoever was the delegate of UK. And that person, the UK one, she was the only one, she was the only one who was from my school. So we were the only two people from the same school. So I knew her a bit. And then at the end of committee, we used to exchange jokes, sing songs, and also people were asked to exchange chits for each other. So the UK and the UK delegates started teasing the Canadian delegate. You're a traitor. You betrayed me. Dhokebaz, Gaddar.
And that's so funny. And what about the YLAC?
Uh,
So first
so
you
so
want
at so at yeah so just one so at this conference I got a high commendation, and then there was another conference
okay,
where MUN
hmm.
where I was just part of this committee called DISEC, which deals with arms and weapons and how to disarm weapons and all, and I was Singapore in that committee, and I got the award of special mention, which is I think the third or the fourth highest. And then so this was about MUN. So YLAC is basically this program called Young Leaders for Active Citizenship. I think it was launched around 5-6 years ago, and they do a lot of programs and workshops to encourage young people to understand the current social issues, both local issues and global issues, and it helps them understand how to create impact. So one of the programs they had offered in for YLAC was this thing called Counter Speech Fellowship. It was a partnership with Instagram, and we were assigned to 5-6 teams, and we would each create content about different topics and issues which affect people. So the topics were like bullying, body image, diversity, violent extremism, terrorism, and all that. So these were our topics, and every week we would cover a different topic. So I really had fun creating content for my team, and I got an award for that at the end of the program. And the second program I took part in was this program called High School Achievers Program. So they did a really interesting thing at the start of the program. So they had this thing called a privilege walk. So they asked people who felt that they were more privileged in life, as in privileged in life or in background, to come forward, and people who thought they were less privileged to stand like at the back.
Okay.
So that really taught me a lot about, that really made me aware about what privilege means, and how, if you have privilege in society, how should you use to benefit people who are not so privileged as you are. And then we discussed a lot of issues in that program also, and we even went to Vidhan Bhavan to see how the legislature in Maharashtra state works.
That's great.
So this program is it works out of, when I was there, they had programs both in Mumbai and Delhi. I don't know what they had now. I think they had an online program during COVID also, just in case, to provide more information about the program, if in case.
Yeah. So were these MUNs and YLACs accessible and inclusive?
Obviously, these events were not school based, or they weren't coordinated by school. So when I joined these events, obviously there wasn't enough much awareness about how to accommodate me and how to address my needs, but that didn't turn out to be a problem. So like I mentioned earlier, you have to have the courage and conviction to talk about your needs and to ask for help in accommodating those needs. So I asked for help where needed in both programs. So for example, for the YLAC Instagram campaign, for any photo that I was supposed to put up on an issue, I would ask my mom for a picture that was relevant, and I would just put a caption. She would give me the picture, and I would put a caption for it and post it.
Okay, so you would tell her the image description that you want, and then she would describe it
Yeah,
for you.
and not just her. I also told the program organizers, be it in the Modern United Nations or WILAC, I would tell them what my needs were. And if this was too visual, they would describe, or they would ask a friend to describe a video or something which was too visual. So I navigated my way around these, and I made the best out of these programs, even though they were from outside schools and they would have been less aware of what my needs was. I made them aware of what I needed and what they needed to help.
Yeah, I think it's very important to ask for the support. Even if there is no support, just ask for it and make it visible. So since MUNs and WILACs were like outside of school, extracurricular and co-curricular activities, so what were some of the co-curricular or extracurricular activities within your school, and were you a part of those activities in your school?
Oh yes, like I mentioned earlier, my school didn't deny any opportunities to me to participate in any activities based on my disability. All they considered was my talent, and because of my talent I was given these opportunities to take part. So I took part in all of my school's annual days, whether it was taking part in a drama or singing in the choir or dancing. So actually in one of my dramas I acted as this naughty student who gets this new student into trouble and sends them down to the principal's office. And there was this other drama where I acted as a cannibal and I was threatening to eat some people who had come to shoot a film there, and I would say, we are very hungry, we'll eat you. And apart from annual day, I also took part in all my sports days. So most of my sports days I took part in some activity like a race or whatever. But even when I didn't take part in the race, my school would always ask me to play the national anthem on the piano to close the event, to close the sports day. And besides that, I also took part in like some special events. Like on Independence Day, I would come dressed as Nehruji with the Nehru jacket and the sherwani, and I would give a speech on Independence Day. And one time for Hindi Divas, I did a solo on the piano and I sang Ye Bharat Desh Hai Mera. So there were quite a lot of activities which I was able to take part in school. And the school gave me the room to explore regardless of my disability. All they saw was my talent and ability.
You can talk about the daily activities.
And also apart from special days, there would also be some daily extracurricular classes like yoga class or karate, or there would also be a games class where they would take us out to play whatever games we wanted. And in all of those classes, both my friends and my teachers, they tried their best to include me in all those activities. So for example, in karate, our sir would come to me and he would show me the strokes by holding my hand, and based on that the other students would learn as well. So he would move my hand in the stroke and the others would observe and learn. And similarly for all the asanas in yoga. And for games, when the others would be playing like sports like football and cricket in their sighted format, like of course there are formats like blind football and blind cricket, but since they were all sighted, that wouldn't be very inclusive, right? So I would play my own games with my friends. So on the ground we went on, we would just move around and we would enact our favorite TV show or something.
Oh, wow. That's cool. So this was a part of the extracurricular or the co-curricular activities. But how would you manage doing the part of your curriculum, the main things in the school?
So doing the curriculum wasn't really difficult as such. Of course, apart from the visual questions I discussed earlier, it wasn't really difficult. So I was always allowed to study using a computer, and all the assignments and textbooks and notes would basically be I had a shadow teacher, and the shadow teacher would basically convert the books and assignments into Word files so that I could just type on the computer and finish those assignments or read a textbook or a note. And similarly for my exams.
So you mentioned about using a computer, and is there any other assistive technology that you have used and your interest in technology?
Yes, so I started using the computer at the age of 4, and I have used a bunch of screen readers. So, like I mentioned earlier, screen reader is a software which basically reads the text aloud on this, what is displayed on the screen aloud to you, and you're able to navigate on the computer and operate it with the help of the screen reader just like anyone else. So, there were two screen readers I used. JAWS is a paid screen reader and NVDA is a free screen reader. So I use both of them for my computer, and also on these screen readers are also available on phones. So on Android there's a screen reader called TalkBack, which is pretty user friendly and accessible, and the same is true for Apple devices like iPhones. The one which I use, where the screen reader is called VoiceOver, so it reads out text like TalkBack and all the Windows screen readers. It reads out text on the screen, and I'm able to use and navigate my phone with the help of these screen readers. And also I have used a couple of other devices as well. So there's I spoke about Victor Reader earlier. So Victor Reader is this audio book player where you can record voice notes or listen to any audio books, or even Daisy books or Bookshare books if you know about them. So, and there was also a Braille note taker. So the Braille note taker would be a device which would use both speech and Braille, and I would be able to operate that. And probably the biggest benefit I had from using Braille note taker was that I got introduced to this genre of games, accessible games called interactive fiction games. So you basically it's basically set in the form of a story, and you complete that story with the action. So in the game you're playing a character, and you control the character and their actions and their moves. So these games are available on Windows PCs as well, but the first place where I was introduced to those games actually was Braille note taker. So there were so they were a really fun set of games to play. And also I had other games on Windows, like there are accessible games like RS games, kitchen sink games, whip games. So whip games basically has games like crazy tennis, keyboard crazy, where you basically simulate playing tennis or typing on the keyboard. And RS games is mostly board and card games like Monopoly, Uno, and those kind of stuff.
So that's great. So you play all these games on your computer?
Yes, so some are available on the phone also, and most are available on the PC.
I also wanted to know, what were some of the challenges that you faced in college? Were they related to the curriculum or studies, or were they more related to social?
So actually the challenges that I faced in my IB school or college, 11th and 12th, were both the social and the social challenges and the challenges of studying were equally relevant, because the biggest challenge was that I came into this new school in 11th after my 10th just as COVID had started. So my first year of schooling was online, so I didn't get to meet any of my friends or my teachers for almost a year, and school opened only in October, which was when I was able to meet with them physically in person. So as a result, there was very little contact, because obviously you can still interact with each other online, but being interacting physically is a completely different story from interacting online, right? So that physical interaction didn't happen for quite a long time, and this led to some social challenges, but I navigated my way around. For example, when I would walk into school, in my old school, I was there for around 9-10 years, so people basically knew that if they would walk past, and I would recognize people's voices, but if people were walking past, it could be anybody's footsteps.
Yeah.
So if they were walking past, they would generally just say hi, and we would talk basically. But in my new school, they didn't know that, because we hadn't interacted for when school started, and that continued for almost 1 year.
Yeah.
So when I first went to school and people would walk past without talking, they wouldn't say hi generally. So the way I worked around it was that, let's say if people were walking past and I had heard them talking earlier and I knew it was the same person, I would just greet them. I would take the initiative and I would greet them and I would say hi, and we would start a conversation. So this is how so eventually they understood that, okay, he's saying hi to us, we should also say hi, especially since he's not able to see us. Maybe he can hear our voices, but if we walk past, we should at least say hi. So the first year was challenging socially, but eventually we were able to narrow the gap, and I've made some good friends at BIS whom I'm still in touch with, although now most of them are in college.
Yeah.
So for example, the biggest highlight was when we went after the 12th exams, we went on a class trip to Goa, organized by our students, no teachers.
Oh, great.
So we had a lot of fun there, and I stayed with my close friends and buddies, and by the time I had made friends at almost with most people, so we had fun. And these were challenges on the social front, and on the academic front, it was first of all, it was a different curriculum from ICSE, and there were tons and tons of projects and research papers in each subject that we had to complete. And there was this one research paper in we could choose to write this paper in every subject, in a subject of our choosing, but there was this one huge research paper in addition to the individual papers, which would be around 4,000 words. So apart from the work stress, it was also that I was not exempted from visual questions, right? Unlike ICSE.
Yeah.
So in class, when I was studying the visual question, any graphs or visual questions, let's say in a graph in math or a cartoon in English class, would have to be described to me, because something like this might come in the exam. So I would just ask the teacher, or a friend I would just ask them, could you please tell me what this is, could you describe this to me? And also a lot of the files that the teachers sent, it was mostly online, so the teachers would send assignments and files and readings through email. So a lot of them were in the form of images. So unlike the previous school where the files would be ready-made, converted into Word files, I had to send the files to my special educator, those images, so that she could convert them into Word, and consequently I would take more time to complete those assignments. And also we needed quite a lot of help with managing and coping these subjects, because the rubrics for the marks put a very high emphasis on visual presentation. Obviously that is important, that your project should look neat, the formatting should be in order and all, but they didn't take into account my needs or my visual impairment. So I just feel the rubrics could have been fairer and more equitable for my projects that I did in 11th and 12th.
Okay, so my next question is about the cane that you use. How is your experience using the cane, and how was your experience learning how to use the cane?
Okay, so I just show the cane. Tayzeem,
Yes.
can the cane be seen on the
Yes.
camera? Yeah. So I had heard about a lot of other people, other blind and vision impaired people who were using the cane to move around, but I was hearing about it, but I didn't have like a really good idea of what that meant and what it entailed, because I hadn't used the cane for a long time. I would use this thing called a sighted guide technique, where basically someone who is sighted would come along with me and I would hold their hand and they would help guide me around. So eventually we went to this forum called an NGO called the Blind Graduates Forum of India, and we heard one of the speakers over there said that told us about how important it was to use a cane, because obviously you won't be walking around with someone like your family member, your parent or any caretaker staff throughout your whole life, right? So you need independence, and to get that independence you have to use the cane. So I didn't feel anything. I didn't have trouble accepting it. I just thought, chalo, it's a new come on, it's a new thing, let's try it. So I got a cane, and I had multiple. I attended 2 classes of orientation and mobility, which basically walking around with the cane and learning to use it at XRCVC at St. Xavier's College, which the Xavier's Resource Center for the Visually Challenged. And through these classes over there, I learned to use the cane. So I know a lot of people might be thinking, might be finding it difficult to accept the fact that they need to use a cane. So my message only is that the cane doesn't make you small. It actually will, if it gives you more independence. You won't need to hold someone every time to walk. You will be able to walk around yourself if you learn and practice the cane enough. Only when you cross the road maybe you need someone's help or assistance, but actually the cane doesn't reduce who you are. It actually increases your independence, and it will increase your self-confidence also. I've also become a lot more self-confident using the cane.
Thank you so much for sharing. I want to know from you what message you want to give to other children with disabilities.
So my message to other kids with disabilities is that have a dream, because your disability doesn't take away your right to dream big and to try to achieve those dreams just like any other person. You have an equal right and an equal claim to everything in this world, and that includes dreaming about and achieving whatever you wish to. But for that, obviously you'll have to work hard and learn to excel, especially at your studies. And even if that involves a little bit of extra hard work, which is like more than your peers who are without a disability, you might feel stressed. Okay, you might feel that okay, this is getting too much, but don't think about the short-term pain. Think about the long-term benefits that you're going to gain from this. That this is going to help you achieve your dream. And the third thing is that please don't just get engrossed in only studies. Build your interests and skills in other areas also. So like me, like I enjoy music, and I play the piano, though it's less now. I have played the piano since I was around 2.5 years old, and I've, like I said, I've performed at my school functions and all. And so whatever you are interested in or you're skilled in, whether it's um, piano or music or art or anything that you enjoy, build up your skills and build up your skills in these fields, and also have a balanced life as well. Try building up your interests also. Watch a apart from studying and your activities, you should also try to relax just like anyone else. So just like you have a right to dream like anyone else, you have a right to relax and take a break also like everyone else. So if you want, like I watch some funny videos or a movie or a show, you should also take time to do whatever you enjoy, or maybe play a game.
Yeah, I think having fun is very important, and we miss on that a lot of times. And so that's for children with disabilities. But and because you have experienced a lot in education system and spent a lot of time in school, so is there any message that you want to give to the education system?
Yes, so my message to the education system would be that there isn't any one solution that fits everyone. One size doesn't fit all,
Yeah.
because any disability is a spectrum. Like for example, autism is a spectrum. Similarly, even blindness is a spectrum. So I am someone who's totally blind, who is not able to see anything. But there are also people who are low vision, who have some vision and who are able to see a little, but not completely blind. So similarly, disability is not not just defined by one characteristic. It's a spectrum. So the education system should try to treat every student as an individual, but to take into account their own needs, rather than just clubbing everyone into one box or one basket. Every person with a disability into one box or basket, or every legally blind person or person with autism into one box. Everyone should be treated as an individual who has needs, but those needs will be different for each and every student. So I think this is what is my message to the education.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And one last question would be, any message for the families or parents of children with disabilities?
So my message to parents and other family members of people, kids and people with disabilities, is that just like they are able to chase their dream and to have a dream, you are the ones who have to believe in their dream and to basically be their biggest cheerleader, and to support and encourage them in their dream. Because family, of course, are the first people that any child knows. So their family should be the strongest network for support and help, and they should enable and encourage their family members or their kids with disabilities to fulfill and accomplish their dream. But at the same time, they should also try to keep them on that dream. So let's say if they go astray, if they are not working as hard towards that dream, try to get them online and discipline them in a gentle way, but still try to discipline them. Like I spoke about my mom, she has been my pillar of support, but sometimes we also have fights when maybe I am not working hard enough, or I am acting naughty. So try to keep them at their dream and don't let them drift away, but at the same time do it in a very gentle and loving manner.
Yeah, I think that's a very important message, to believe in your child and in their dreams, and letting them try reach there.
Yeah, and also Tayzeem, I want to add one more thing. Like,
Yeah.
just like I was given freedom and autonomy, you should also respect your family members' freedom and autonomy, and try to give them as much of that as possible, and be with them. And of course, you should, as a parent or a family member, you should advise them and on the decisions they are making, but always stand by them and try to give them as much freedom to make their own decisions as possible.
Yeah, I think that's very important, Arijit. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with me. I'm definitely taking a lot from this conversation, and I hope everybody does. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Tayzeem. Nice
Thank you,
talking to you.
Arijit.
Nice.